Okay, so in my last video, I was really just talking about all the issues I had with the perimenopause and how it really affected my hair. But what I want to talk today about HRT and how that really made a big difference, not to just how my hair was, but how I just felt in myself. It had a huge impact on my life. So I'm going to talk about that and talk a wee bit about just the all the processes that I went through and all the different ones I tried, just so you can see that it wasn't a straightforward process. And obviously, this is all personal to me, and this is advice I've been given by my doctor. And so, obviously, everybody is different, and what I'm suggesting might not work for you. But as I said, it's really just to show you that there's a process involved. So, I've talked a little bit about how when I was 40, I started to get perimenopausal symptoms like rosacea and things like that, and my hair started to change. But I would say probably it was 2019, just before COVID, that I started to feel really debilitating perimenopausal symptoms that started to have a big impact on my life. So the first thing that happened is that I completely stopped sleeping. I am someone who've never had a problem with sleeping, love sleeping, never been an issue. Waking up at night, problem going to bed or getting to sleep, it's never happened. And it literally felt like it wasn't even a gradual thing. It was just one day I just couldn't sleep, and I was working really hard. I had a really busy job. Um, Exhausted. I was exhausted, but I just couldn't sleep. And I would just lie there for hours and hours and hours. And obviously, there's that thing where when you can't sleep, you becoming more stressed, because you know that you need to sleep because you need your rest. And obviously, there's that thing where you're exhausted because you're not sleeping, and you know that you're really tired and you need to get to sleep, but you can't, and then just that makes things worse. It just went round and round. So I just had weeks where I just lay there. I just couldn't get to sleep, and I would maybe have 2 hours sleep a night, and then obviously I would wake up feeling terrible and really stressed and really confused as to what was happening to me and why was I feeling like this. So the sleep, obviously sleep is so important to health, so that was pretty crucial. And then I started to have night sweats. It's that classic thing that everyone talks to you about, and you think, come on, it can't be that bad that you wake up and all your like your night dress or your pajamas and all the bed sheets are wet with sweat. You think that just can't be a thing. Surely your body can't produce that much sweat, and it can't be a thing. No, it really is. So you wake up and you just don't know what's happened to you. Your hair's wet with sweat, all your clothes, it's just terrible. So you're already not sleeping, and when you do get to sleep, you start to have these terrible night sweats, which obviously, you have to get up, get changed. Maybe it's so bad sometimes you have to change the bedclothes in the middle of the night. Just terrible. So there's that. But I would say the sleep and the night sweats were really bad. One thing, it's always good to find the positives. One thing I've never had is hot flushes. Touching wood here that it doesn't happen. I've never had a hot flush, and I can imagine if you're suddenly talking or you're in a meeting or you just and suddenly your face starts to drip sweat. I can't even imagine what that must be like. And weirdly enough, often, not always, but often you follow the steps in your perimenopause and menopause that your mother did. And I'm definitely finding that she never had hot flushes, but she did have night sweats. And a great one that she had, I can remember talking about it, where she talked about how she couldn't have alcohol anymore because it gave her horrific headaches. And she always loved a gin and tonic and a nice glass of wine or whatever, and then just had to completely stop drinking. And that's another thing that's happened to me. But actually, I'll write that down. That's another one for a future video. Anyway, so we had the not sleeping, we had the night sweats, and then we had panic attacks. I'm a really positive person. I would describe myself as quite confident. Then panic attacks. I've never been an anxious person. I've never had a panic attack. So when I started getting panic attacks, now the terrifying things about these panic attacks is that it would just come out of nowhere. It wouldn't even be linked to anything. I wouldn't be feeling stressed, or I mean, obviously I was feeling stressed most of the time because I couldn't sleep and all the rest of it, but it wasn't like something really bad had happened and then I'd suddenly have a panic attack. It just came out of nowhere. I'd just be doing normal things and suddenly I would go into a full panic attack, or I couldn't breathe. It was just horrific. And I didn't know what that was about. What was that about? Why were all these things happening to me? What was happening? Obviously, it's great now we do talk about the menopause, but I didn't really talk to my mother much about the menopause. She would talk about, I remember her putting patches on, estrogen patches, and talking about that, and talking about the alcohol, and talking about the night sweats, but we didn't really talk about anything else. And so it was just sort of, I just thought about it more in that my periods would stop and maybe I'd get some night sweats, but not that it would completely transform my life and how I felt about everything. I never thought, I wasn't ready for that. So I had the panic attacks. Then I had these feelings of total doom. Now, I've got to be honest and say that sometimes these still come back. I still get these, even on HRT. It's not as often, definitely, it's a lot better. But I could be at the supermarket or just quite happy walking the dog, just walking along, and suddenly this terrible feeling of black doom descended on me. And it's so bad. It's like nothing I've ever experienced before. It's not that you're just feeling a bit sad or a bit worried about something. It's just a physical thing that made you just feel so terrible about everything. And it was so bad when it suddenly came, it would literally make me sort of take an intake of breath, like, oh, and sometimes I almost like gulp in the sheer horrendousness of it, like that, like, oh. And then sometimes it would just go on for a few hours. Sometimes it'd be 15 minutes, sometimes it'd be the whole day. Sometimes it's so bad, you almost felt like you had to hold on to something. So, as I said, I occasionally still get those, but now I know what they are. I know they are linked to hormones, and I know they'll pass, but the time, and with all those other things that are going on, just horrific. So I phoned the doctor, and obviously this was just in COVID, and so at that point you could only you could just phone the doctors and have a chat with them. I spoke to a female doctor, a middle-aged female doctor, and she just said the absolute classic textbook, what you don't say to a woman who is obviously going into full-blown perimenopause and is wondering what on earth is happening to their life. You do not say, oh, you're probably going through some kind of midlife crisis. You're probably a bit depressed. I know, let's give you some sleeping pills and some antidepressants. So this is what she gave me. I mean, I just can't believe it. I mean, how could that be possible? I mean, now I understand how it's possible because medical students, as I found, get about half an hour of training on the menopause, and that's it. I feel when I go and speak to a doctor, and I'm not trying to be arrogant about it, but I do feel that most of the time I know more about them than they do about menopause. And a lot of them have actually suggested things to me which are just incorrect. And I've had to say, no, actually, you can use that with testosterone, or you're allowed to, that's okay. And then they've backtracked and said, oh, right, okay. Anyway, it doesn't fill you with confidence. So that was terrible. She put me on antidepressants. I didn't take the antidepressants because I knew it wasn't that. I just knew in myself, and I didn't want to be taking antidepressants. the sleeping pills, because I'm quite a petite person, and that just completely knocked me out in the day as well. I took half dose of the amount that she prescribed, and I could hardly walk along the road. It was so strong, and it just made me feel so terrible. So I took the sleeping pills for about a week, and then I just stopped taking those as well, because I just knew it just was ridiculous. And then a really positive thing happened to me. I couldn't get any kind of telephone appointment with the doctor. So the receptionist said, "Why don't you speak to the practice nurse?" So I chatted to the practice nurse, and she said, I talked to her about my symptoms, and she said, "Oh, well, it sounds very much like you're going through the perimenopause and you've got menopause symptoms. You should be on HRT." And it was the first time that anyone had said that to me. So obviously that was a huge relief, and she was really wonderful and much more knowledgeable, definitely, than the doctors were um, about the menopause. And one thing she did first of all is obviously it was quite tricky because I couldn't go in and see people, but she put me on to a few podcasts and online videos by menopause specialists. The first one is Dr. Louise Newson, who is wonderful, and I will put a link to her on the video. So much just really straightforward, down to earth, open, just information about menopause and what it is and how it works and what happens and how you feel and all these things that no one else had ever told me about. So those are fantastic. And then obviously you've got the fantastic Davina McCall. She's produced so much information for menopause and women going through menopause. So I'll put a few links of. She's done some TV programs for Channel 4, which were great. And then also she's done lots of podcasts and other things, so really wonderful. So that really helped me educate myself, because I had to educate myself, because no one else other than the nurse, there wasn't a doctor who was going to tell me. This has all been led by myself. And I think if I hadn't done all the research myself and found out about it, I don't know what kind of state I would be in now. So after I watched all these videos, I spoke to the nurse, then started a process. It's probably about 18 months to 2 years of trying different things until I found something that really was suitable for me. The first thing that I learned is that from Louise Newson that obviously you've got estrogen, you've got progesterone, and you've got testosterone. And testosterone is a thing that is becoming more popular now. You always think of testosterone as being a male hormone, but actually we have a lot of testosterone in our body, and it does a lot of wonderful things for us. So that's something to come on to later. But I'm just going to be talking today about estrogen and progesterone, because they're the sort of classic things, and that's what I was prescribed first of all. So Louise Newson taught me that ideally, not all people can. It's suitable. You need to have a bioidentical estrogen. That's basically an estrogen that is close to your natural estrogen that your body was producing. Obviously, when you go into perimenopause, you're still producing estrogen. And when you're fully menopausal, you're still producing a bit of estrogen, but it's just that that your levels decrease. And obviously, when you are fully menopausal, they've decreased a lot. So bioidentical, it's made naturally. It is made from yams, a vegetable. It used to be made from horse's wee, not anymore. It's made from yams. You can get the gel, the patches, or you can get a pill that you can take. I've learned that even though the pill is quite handy, obviously you take it every day, a bit like if you ever were on the contraceptive pill, that's quite easy thing to remember. But anything that you put directly into your body, that's not transdermal. Transdermal means through the skin. If you actually can take it into your body, there's more chance that it can affect your liver and have detrimental effects, like blood clots and things like that. It basically, the pill version has more side effects. So if you can, it's better just to go for the transdermal gel. You spread it on your skin and it's just absorbed into your bloodstream through your skin. It's not going into your stomach and through all the rest of it. So the first thing I tried was Sandrena estradiol type of estrogen. So was this one. It came in all these little sachets, which were a bit faffy. And you had to just rub them onto your thighs once a day after you've had a shower. So I tried those a little bit. Now, if you are taking estrogen, you have to take progesterone. It makes sure that it keeps your uterus healthy and makes sure that that's turning over to avoid any issues. So you really need to take progesterone, but also I've discovered that progesterone is also really, I mean, it's not just your uterus, it's really important for other things such as your hair. Come on to that later. So if you are prescribed HRT, it has to be your estrogen and it has to be some form of progesterone. Now, I tried, the first thing I was put on was Provera. And not only does progesterone protect your uterus, but it also is meant to help your heavy periods. That's definitely one thing that got a lot worse in my last few years of perimenopause. It got to the point where, and I hadn't suffered from heavy periods or really bad periods. I mean, no one enjoys their period, but it wasn't so bad that I would have to be off work or, it was inconvenient, annoying and all the rest of it. But I never had anything really terrible. Well, the last couple of years of my perimenopause and the last year, just truly horrific. It was so bad that I'd actually completely dread it to the point where I think, how can I do this logistically? How can I go to work and manage this period? And it was just a nightmare. So progesterone is meant to help that. I didn't really find that made a big difference. I went to have a scan and all these kinds of things to check that I had no issue with my uterus, but there wasn't anything. It was just my perimenopause. Anyway, Provera made me feel really nauseous. And it just made me feel horrible. And I since discovered that it isn't bioidentical. So it's a more synthetic version of progesterone. And obviously we're trying to go for the bioidentical, the more natural versions. And my body just didn't like this. And it just made me feel pretty horrible. So this basically, the Sandrena and the Provera were the first thing that I tried. As I said, all these little sachets that you had to rip them, and I didn't think it was great for the environment with all these bits of plastic and everything and foils everywhere. So I just wasn't really happy with that. Anyway, next thing, went on to the patches. So obviously the idea of the patches is you're not putting any gel on. It's still transdermal. It's still going through your skin. You don't have to put something on it every day. You just put a patch on at different times in the week, depending on which one you use. So I went for this Everol Sequi. So these ones have a selection of patches for the month. Some of them have got just estrogen and some of them have got estrogen and progesterone, and it's meant to mimic what your body naturally does and the cycle of releasing estrogen and progesterone in your body. Again, made me feel a bit sick. I was obviously quite sensitive to progesterone. Yeah, it was really handy to just slap the you can just put them on your buttocks or your thighs or your lower back, but quite sort of pull off, and also it would leave you with all these gluey marks around your back, which you can get off with baby oil and everything. So that's not some disaster. But what happened to me is I had a reaction to the glue that sticks these on. So not only was I funny with the progesterone, but it was I got like a rash, and you don't stick them in the same place, you move them around, so there's less chance of reaction. I probably used these for about 6 months, a bit longer, 9 months maybe. So I didn't really get on so well with those. Anyway, finally, after watching a lot of Louise Newson's videos, she talks about this Oestrogel, which is bioidentical. I mean, the Sandrena was bioidentical, but this is obviously a lot better. I should have opened this before, because you have, oh, it's quite tricky to open. There we go. You've just got a pump, which is just a lot easier. And you just put 2 pumps, one on one hand. And you can put it on your thighs. You can put it on your upper arms. You can put it on your lower back. The only thing that you have to do is you can't have moisturizer on your body when you put it on. Something that Louise Newson recommends is that, say you're going to put it on your upper arms, that you put it on your upper arms and then you wait 15 minutes and then you put moisturizer on. To be honest, what I tend to do is I get out of the shower, I put 1 pump on one side of my lower back and another on the other side of my lower back, because I don't tend to moisturize my lower back. And then I just put body moisturizer on, because I just forget if I'm waiting 15 minutes for things. And that's what I tend to do with that. So really happy with that. It's just easy to use. I think it's just like the gold standard, this one. But again, everything's quite tricky. When I moved medical practice and I had to go to a new practice and they had to redo my menopausal prescription, the doctor said, oh, we can't get that for you. And I said, well, this is what I've always had, and this works really well for me, and it's taken me 18 months to get to the point where I can have this, and everyone always says this is a real classic standard thing to have. So again, I had to fight for that, because it has been a fight from start to finish. And in the end, she said, oh, I found another pharmacy and we can get it for you now. And in the end, I just pick it up from my local pharmacy. It's just get it from Boots. It's very simple. So I don't know what that was about. Anyway, that's really good. But I think probably the most important thing for me has been the progesterone. Utrogestan is one that is recommended, another sort of gold standard. And the difference with this is it's bioidentical, which the Provera isn't. So it's more natural and there's less side effects. And as I said, the side effects for me was always nausea and just feeling a bit yucky. So this has been great for me. But something that I wish that it was the nurse that had prescribed this, that she did say it might make you feel a bit drowsy, but she said that's great because you're taking it at night, so it'll help you sleep. So that's good, especially because of some issues with sleep. But to be honest, the issues with sleep did stop once I started taking HRT. And oh my gosh, I took this and it was so major. It made me feel so sleepy and exhausted. There was one day where I actually worried that I could drive my car home. It only lasted for about a week to 10 days. And it wasn't that extreme every day, but I just spent the whole day yawning and felt so tired. So obviously that was my body getting used to this. And then from one day just thinking, oh no, this is a disaster. I thought this was going to be better because it's bioidentical, it's more natural, it's not all the side effects. And then it just disappeared. So obviously, and that is a standard thing, obviously your body gets used to this, but you will have, as I said, about a week of feeling very tired, and then it's never been a problem again. And I think that this has really helped my hair growth as well. So got these two things. So it has been probably 2 or 3 years now that I've been taking these. So I've been really happy with that. But as I said, it was a bit of a journey. And also I had to research for myself what was going to be best, because I was the one that had to suggest all these new things. And there was quite a lot of fight to to get on HRT in the first place. And obviously the problem with HRT is, firstly, doctors don't know very much about it, and they're not trained. And I'm definitely hoping the new breed of doctors are going to be trained, and that's going to be in their medical syllabus. And there was that big research document that said that taking HRT increased your risk of breast cancer. And that caused a lot of women to stop taking it, and a lot of doctors to stop prescribing it. That research has now been overturned. It was fatally flawed, and it was a terrible thing, because a lot of women whose lives have been improved so much by HRT, they stopped taking it, and they went back to all the terrible symptoms. But I feel that that's really sort of just left a mark on medical practices and doctors. They still talk about HRT, and it always used to frustrate me. They still talk about it like some deadly drug that you've got to be really careful with, and are you sure you want to do it, and all this kind of thing. And as I said, you've really got to fight for it. And which is a terrible shame. It really shouldn't be like that. And I just think at a time in your life when you're already feeling potentially really low, you're lacking self-confidence, you don't know what's happening to yourself, and then you've got to go on this big fight to get yourself HRT. It's really wrong. So that's what happened, and it meant that I still feel that a lot of doctors are quite reluctant to give people HRT. They've since discovered, this is the crazy thing, that there's more risk to your health and getting breast cancer if you don't do regular exercise, or if you have a glass of wine a day. All those things are much more dangerous, which people do regularly, than taking HRT. So it's crazy. And also HRT is not expensive in the UK for the NHS. It's not an expensive product to give to women. Yeah, it's a shame that it's like that, and I'm hoping that things will improve. But when I spoke to my new doctor recently, she looked at my file and said, "Oh, you've been on HRT for 5 years now. You might want to think about coming off it. It's probably over the worst now." So, firstly, that whole thing of, the menopause is just for a short amount of time and then it's over. Basically, when you become fully menopausal, which is the year after you've basically not had periods for a year, and that day when it's a full year of not having a period, then you are fully menopausal, and you're fully menopausal until the day you die. It's not like a phase. Things don't just suddenly return. Your body will always be low in estrogen. And at the beginning of menopause, you might go through a stage where your symptoms are more extreme, and they do lessen a little bit. But obviously they've discovered that estrogen is so good for things that really affect women when they're older, such as osteoporosis, brittle bones. And it really helps strengthen your bones. And that is obviously a real issue for women that can lead to a lot of fatalities. So I'm hoping to ideally take HRT for the rest of my life. I feel that it has made such a difference to my life. And the idea that after 5 years, right, that's all done and dusted, you've done all that research, you've battled, you've gone through all that, but now it's time to finish it, because they've got this sort of old-fashioned attitude that it's only for a short amount of time. And so that's something that I'm going to have to prepare myself for, because in a few months' time, the doctor said we're going to have to look at that, and I'm going to have to do a lot of research and go into the surgery, into that appointment with literally a clipboard with all the information written down, because that's what you have to do. You have to go in and you have to be prepared. You have to be, you have to educate yourself. And as I said, what you'll often find is you'll know more than the doctor who's talking to you. So what has HRT done for me? It's completely stopped my issue with sleep. I've never had that issue again. Obviously, sometimes I think there are some times when you have real dips in your estrogens level, and then you might get a night, and then I get a night sweat. So occasionally I get a night sweat, but it doesn't just come back. It's sort of the occasional one. And what you can do with this, and Louise Newson talks about this, is that if you are getting night sweats, you can actually give yourself like a double dose. Normally with medication, you wouldn't be able to do that. But if you're going through a stage where you feel that you're having night sweats and you feel like your symptoms are back, you can give yourself you can do this twice a day or something like that until it's sort of passed. Obviously, you can talk to your doctor about that and get some advice, but you can do that. So the night sweats that I was having all the time, they're just occasional now, and they're definitely not as bad as they were. The panic attacks, I haven't had another panic attack like I had at the start before I went at HRT. As I said, the doom feelings, the doom feelings do come back, and they are horrific, but they're shorter. It's not so much the whole day. And also, I suppose it's like anything. I know what it is. I know that it's going to disappear. And so it's not great. And I just sort of think, oh, today or for the next couple of hours, I'm going to feel terrible. But I know that it is just it's just a physical thing. It is my estrogen levels. And then the next day, there's a good chance that I do just feel different again. So definitely feeling more positive about life, because dealing with all those symptoms was just awful. And I think, I mean, you definitely hear about people and talking about menopause, about feeling and midlife, just feeling like you've lost your confidence. You don't feel like you were the same person that you were before. Things just didn't used to bother you, and they really do. People talk about feeling sort of underwater, and sort of, I definitely felt like that. Still feel a bit like that. But HRT has made such a difference for me. And the hair, it's always back to the hair. Definitely felt that my hair, the thinning really improved. And there's research to say that Utrogestan really helps with your hair growth, along with testosterone, actually, and we'll come on to that again. So my hair wasn't as thin. I could see that my hair was in the areas where my hair was a bit patchy, that my hair was growing. I stopped shedding hair. That's definitely stopped. That whole thing of like loads of hair coming out in the shower, loads of hair on my coat, all that has stopped. As I said, my hair is not the same as it was before, but it's fuller. I've got more of it. I don't have so much of all this thinning around the front, and I feel I've just got a lot of hair on my head. And it was quite nice. A year or so ago, I spoke to my hairdresser, and obviously she knows about my menopausal hair thing. And she said, Sal, you've got a lot of hair. It's just fine. So that's one good thing. I've got actually a lot of hair on my head. It's just the actual hair strands are really fine now. But I feel that along with other things, and I'll talk about that next one, the HRT really helped because obviously it stopped my follicle shrinkage so much. So the hair that was coming out, because some of the hair that was coming out was like the babiest, finest, you could just pull it and it would break. That has definitely improved. And then obviously the my scalp is holding on to my hair for longer, like it used to when I was younger. So those two things have made a real difference. So I'm hoping that will be have been helpful. So next time I'm going to talk about diet. Diet has made a huge difference. Also supplements. I did a huge amount of research, years of research into what vitamins and minerals are going to help how I feel, but particularly my hair. And as I said, any other and things that I do with my diet, particularly protein. And I'll be talking about that in my next video.